Good afternoon, I'm Quentin, the Director for Green and Healthy Buildings at the European Copper Institute, and I'm glad to welcome you to our second EPBD debate. The EPBD, Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, sets the framework to achieve a zero-emission building stock. We have scheduled 4 debates on the road to zero-emission buildings to explore the challenge from different angles. 2 weeks ago, we had our first debate with MEP Morten Helveg Petersen, and we discussed the importance of applying energy efficiency first to achieve zero-emission buildings. Today, we will take the angle of professionals and discuss skills and training. Our next debate will discuss the importance of buildings into the energy system, and it will be on May 31st. And finally, we will take the very important perspective of consumers in the last debate that will be scheduled in June. More information on all of this on our website. The renovation wave and the energy transition puts the construction sector in front of a fundamental challenge and new practices. The needs in training, qualification, and certification for new roles and skills will be very important. To explore this challenge, we will be joined in a few seconds, hopefully by a member of the European Parliament, Seán Kelly. He's Shadow Rapporteur for EPP on the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. He was also the leading rapporteur for the EPBD implementation report adopted last December. One key enabler of the transition is electrification. Electrification of heating with heat pumps will play a key role to achieve zero-emission buildings. Buildings will also contribute to electrification of transport by providing charging infrastructure. Electrical engineers and electrical contractors are important to this debate. Their role is essential to ensure safe, efficient, and smart electrical installations ready for zero-emission buildings. So I'm therefore pleased to welcome, first of all, Seán Kelly, who just joined us. So welcome, Seán. I just introduced you before. So Seán Kelly, who is Shadow Rapporteur for EPP on the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Seán. Then we have with us Professor Angelo Baggini, Professor of Electrical Engineering at the University of Bergamo. We have Julie Beaufils, the Secretary General of EuropeOn, the EU Association of Electrical Contractors, and Oliver Jung, EU Affairs Manager for the European Heat Pump Association. So we will start with a short presentation by Professor Angelo Baggini to illustrate how the work of electrical engineers and electrical contractors is becoming central in building renovation in order to achieve zero-emission buildings. And we will come back afterwards for our debate with all participants and the audience as explained. So Angelo, the floor is yours with one key question: how to ensure that buildings are ready for full electrification.
Thank you very much, Quentin, for this opportunity. It's really a pleasure for me to try to answer to this absolutely important and real question. Are European homes ready for full electrification? It's not simple. For sure, we are in front of a revolution similar to the one that followed the Volta's battery, but this time caused by a series of different factors of changes that we usually call full electrification. A small piece of this revolution is already evident to all, but this is not alone. We have a quite large number of changes that are expected to affect the residential electricity user. The automation, the electrification of usages, the distributed generation and storage, some change in energy conversion efficiency, and the general consumption trend. These changes will affect the electrical energy consumption and the electrical power required by each single residential user, as well as the distribution network. But today we will concentrate only on the single residential electrical installation. We will concentrate on this to evaluate if they are ready to manage this tsunami, and we will try to answer, first of all, evaluating the magnitude and the direction of each one of these changes, and then comparing this with the actual existing residential electrical installation in the perspective of the future, comparing the existing installation with the new normality. Let's start with the electrification of usages. The most important factor of change in this case is indeed in terms of energy as well as in terms of power, due by space heating that will move to heat pumps, and last but not least, the electrification of transport, that is in our perspective, the electric vehicle charger. General consumption trend. Electrical energy consumption increases because of new applications and the increase of existing application induced by user behavior changes in lifestyle. For example, new application like sauna, IT equipment at home, and so on. The most evident example, for sure with reference to the south of Europe, is represented by space cooling. By the way, we have to consider that also in the case of existing appliances, it is statistically demonstrated that when renewing an equipment, the new one is chosen larger than the previous one. And then the consumption cannot decrease. Just think to our new car. Never seen someone who bought a new car less powerful than the old one, even if the efficiency of the new car is better, the consumption will increase. Because in fact, the new technologies improves constantly. Let's think to LED, for example. Distributed generation and storage. Indeed, this is something new in the residential sector, and something that will increase for sure in the future. The automation. In this category are grouped the technologies allowing the automatic control of electrical appliances for reducing both power and energy without losing functionality and comfort. Something again important in the new normality. But the question remains the same. Is the actual residential electrical installation ready to manage this change? Let's evaluate concretely, looking at a case study of a house in the north of Italy. A real house close to Milan, a specific case, but I think good to put in evidence the factor useful to answer. Let's start with the description. description. A typical house, this is the ground floor, a garage, the dinner, and so on. At the first floor, bedrooms, and so on. Nothing special. Existing situation. Let's imagine an electrical installation designed 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. No great difference. The existing installation is serving sockets, light point, and switches, electrical space heating, electrical space cooling, electrical domestic water heating are not present. No automation system is present. The distribution is simple radial through conduits embedded into the walls, and the lines are connected directly to the main switchboard where the protection are installed. The contractual power, at least in Italy, is very low. Let's say the classical and the national 3 kilowatt. The single line diagram is the one on the right. Let's move to the future, and let's call it full electrification case or Horizon 2030. The electrical installation will be requested to serve again sockets like points, switches as now, and the following application: the electrical space heating, the heat pump, the electrical space cooling, the same equipment during summer, the electrical domestic water heating, again a heat pump or made by resistors, cooking, sauna, perhaps a PV roof, perhaps, and probably an electric vehicle charger. And probably, and finally, because we are waiting for this since at least 30 years, the electrical installation will include an automation system. Then it's a matter to be able to supply all these new loads and to connect the new renewable energy sources. But it is also matter to keep the energy performance. I prefer energy performance, but in fact, energy efficiency, to keep energy efficiency under control. For example, let's look to a typical pie of energy final usages. This one is from Eurostat. We have a lot of them. Let's just have a look to one of them. 1/3 is in the transport. Moving this slice to electric energy will move the equivalent energy and power to the residential installation. The residential electrical installation should be able to manage this energy, and preferably to do this in an efficient and safety way. Even not paying attention to safety, if the charging process is done in a not efficient way, a part of the positive effect related to electrification of transport will be lost. Indeed, the electric vehicle charger is the most important change into the residential electrical installation. This will involve the need to optimize the installation, to design the installation, because typically in the residential sector, electrical installation, let's say, are not properly designed. we cannot continue, in my opinion, in this way. We have to speak also in terms of energy performance of the installation. Let's say, with reference to the graph on the right bottom corner, we have also to take into account the economic efficiency, that is to be able to compare the cost of the first installation with the cost of the entire life cycle of the installation, including the losses in the internal lines of our installation. Almost the same is for PV roof, storage, and more in general, renewable energy sources. New needs to avoid to lose the positive effects. Very simple. The single line diagram is to manage all these changes will have to change completely. Not just one switchboard, but more than one. In my example, 4 instead of 1, 2 meters, different lines, completely different sizes of these lines. Indeed, driven by the electric vehicle charger, but not alone. We have to consider also all the other new electrified usages. This is a schema referred to the same house, a bit more sophisticated than the previous one. This is the ground floor, and this is the first floor. But coming back to our question, is the European building stock ready for that? As anticipated, no. No, it is not ready. This is the answer, but we have to consider also at least two corollary. The availability of ready electrical installation is crucial. Is a crucial factor, is an enabling factor to be able to move forward. Then it's not simply matter to not be ready, but is also matter to avoid to put an obstacle in front of this wave of change. And a second corollary, we can do something to be ready. There are a lot of actions to be put in place to be done. In my opinion, we can act on time, preparing the right technical standards, for example, requiring a minimal consistencies of electrical installation also in the residential sector, a minimum level of efficiency, guidelines for the design of the installation anticipating the future, and then the programs to improve skills, to have qualified professionals for design, for installation, and for control, for inspection. And last but not least, a system to inform the value of the electrical installation to the owner. Probably one of the most important problems of our electrical energy is that we cannot see it. And then typically till now, and for sure in the electrical, in the residential sector, the electrical installation is remained the last, let's say, almost forgotten. But this is not feasible for the future when everything will be electrified. Thank you very much. This is all obviously available for discussion. Thank you again, Quentin.
So we'll first turn to Seán Kelly. So Seán, I would like to invite you to share your first thoughts on the skills challenge, the EPBD recast, and the process so far in the Parliament. But maybe after the presentation of Angelo, I would have a first very short question. Should, in your opinion, the EPBD recast better address electrical installations?
Absolutely, yes. And that will be included in some of the things I have to say. Michel Baggini pointed out the necessity to ensure that electrical installations are available and how they can be done and they benefit from them. So definitely that is something that we will be hoping to highlight in the EPBD when we finalize it. So generally, let me begin by thanking the European Copper Institute for inviting me to speak here today and for conducting this policy series. In my implementation report on the EPBD voted in December with the ECI, as I will be for the remainder of this directive. Buildings are at the very nexus of all EU climate policy, and they must be equipped with the technology to both contribute and utilize a changing energy system. Ensuring the success of the renovation wave will essentially come through four interlinking factors. The money to pay for the renovations, 1. The workers to do the work, 2. The supply of materials and an overarching secure regulatory framework to incentivize building owners to undertake renovations, 3 and 4. The EPBD as a piece of legislation only has certain remit. Education and the training of workers is a member state competence, for example. All we can do is make recommendations. However, we do need to see a coordinated and clear effort by the Commission and member states to address the issue of skills. Member states must invest in capacity building, technical assistance, and on upskilling and reskilling policies to realize the twin transition of a green and digital transition. The Commission, on the other hand, should embrace its role as a facilitator. Unfortunately, however, while I believe the need for skilled workers is understood as a fundamental challenge, I do not see much action to address that challenge. There are essentially four facets in ensuring supply of skilled workers. 1, attractive visas and working conditions to import talent. 2, upskilling and reskilling the existing workforce so that skills and knowledge meet the needs of the renovation wave. 3, creation of new talent via technical colleges and learning institutions. And 4, training workers with applicable skills from another sector. These are actions that we can take and must take. For example, I have called for an EU skills initiative that enables intermediaries such as installers, architects, electricians, or contractors to advise, prescribe, or install relevant solutions for energy efficiency programs and a decarbonized building stock. There also could be a renovation skills summit and subsequent platform to link industry needs, learning centers, policymakers, and representatives of workers. On the member state side, national plans should mention the number of installers that need to be skilled and reskilled, trained and accredited, but also how to do this, how to scale up the training capacities. Without this, we will not meet our targets. This should include both a quantitative and a qualitative assessment of the current market needs for skilled professionals in the construction sector. Based on this overview, member states can project the rise in demand that is expected by 2025 and beyond to 2030. Of one, an increase the overall renovation rate, and two, increase the proportion of deep renovations. One-stop shops could also provide information to installers on technical, financial, and administrative matters to support access to reskilling. Also, member states should account for the amount of work attached to the introduction of MEPs in their national renovation plans. MEPs framework and major renovations should cover the retrofit of technical building systems. Buildings are becoming an integrated part of the energy system with the deployment of new energy loads and other technical building systems which are key to decarbonize buildings. Lastly, as I know this is a point close to the heart of the ECI, I would like to mention the electrical inspection regimes, which are included in the recommendations section of the implementation report of the EPBD. Energy performance certificates, as Mr. Baggini pointed out, are an important awareness tool and have a large potential to improve the performance of buildings. EPCs should integrate information about the latest inspection of electrical installations and their readiness to install necessary green technologies. We should also consider how national inspection regimes of existing electrical installations in residential buildings are included in national building renovation plans. So I think they're the main points I would like to get across to you. Thank you once again, and well done to the ECI for your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Seán. A lot of points that resonate very well in all what you said, and I'm sure Julie, Oliver, and Angelo will have things to contribute to it as well. Maybe Julie first, I wanted to ask you whether, in your feeling, electrical installations and electrical contractors are sufficiently acknowledged in their key role to play. So it seems Seán definitely recognized this, but what would be your key point to make sure that they are sufficiently acknowledged?
Acknowledged by whom? Sorry, Quentin.
Or by all policies for the renovation wave. So and then particularly in the EPBD.
Okay. So first, I'd like to say that well, thank you for the occasion, and also thank you, Mr. Kelly, for all the comments that you made. I just wrote everything down. That was very rich. So thank you. As for your question, Quentin, well, I think that the role of electrical contractors and electrical installers in particular is increasingly acknowledged. It's also quite reflected in the EPBD and in many legislations, EU legislations, under the name of installers. It's a bit wider, but that's definitely where we would fit in. But then there's, if there's an acknowledgement, there's also a need for action. And so there I would definitely join Mr. Kelly's comments on the fact that it's very good to rely on electrical contractors, but you need to make sure that there are enough electrical contractors on the ground to deliver on the green and digital transition objectives. And that's what we are missing now. I'll just take one example and then I'll stop here. So we have increasing targets for the Fit for 55 package, for the Green Deal overall, and we are looking at increasing those targets even higher at the moment. But as of today, we report very concerning vacancies in our sector. And so just one example, in Germany, in current times. There are reported vacancies for 80,000 jobs. So that's really a lot, and that's actually 1/5 of the whole electrical contractors trade. So that's the bottleneck that we are facing.
Thank you, Julie. So you agree there is need for action, as Seán said. Seán proposed several things, and particularly EU skills initiative and a renovation skills summit. What is your opinion on this?
I think it was very well said that the Commission has limited, and the EU has limited competence on competences, I should say. So this is definitely going in the right direction. One thing that I would like to make really clear, because I hear that there might be new initiatives from the Commission coming soon on the green transition and skills, and maybe, for example, a pact for skills in this area. There are already several declinations of the pact for skills. What is missing in this initiative, and what means that it wouldn't be enough, is that we really need the EU to put pressure on member states, because member states have the competence to make a real change on workforce challenges. So both skills and applicants, because what we need is not just people who are more skilled, but we need people overall, and that's the issue that we are facing. So yeah, I think that a skills summit would make sense if the Commission makes sure that it's not just the private sector discussing, because we are more than aware of the issue. We now need member states fully on board with very comprehensive solutions. It's not all up to the industry, because when you have the same problem in every country, in many trades, it's a systemic problem. It's not just the problem of one or two industries.
Thank you, Julie. Oliver, the situation is probably similar for heat pumps. Accelerating their deployment is an objective of the REPowerEU communication, and we are waiting the concrete plan next week. So what's your thought on this? Will we have enough installers, and how to ensure this workers' capacity for heat pumps?
Thank you, Quentin, for the invitation. These are very special times for us, because we never have received so many calls from journalists and shows of interest in the importance of heat pump. And what we're saying now, and what we have been saying since many years, is that the industry, so the manufacturers of heat pumps, they're ready to deliver. As of today, they're ready to support an accelerated deployment of heat pumps. And we need, of course, to have the workforce to help us do so. So we have, among some of our members, there are already some private initiative with regards to training. But we really think that having a European initiative, a summit, a platform, or any initiative that could bring together workers, and that could really show that this is the future, this is where we want to go. I think this would be very helpful. I'll just finish by 2 points by saying, yes, it's of course national competence, mainly education, but there are things that can be done at the European level. Education, and we can discuss this later, but education related to training through trainers is scattered around among different pieces of EU legislation, and this should be put together. And then, so consistency is one thing which can be done by policymakers. And secondly is more bluntness, to be more blunt in what is being said. We're happy that this communication from the Commission first in time mentions the importance of heat pumps, foresees a clear plan for heat pumps, instead of just, being technology neutral or hoping that things are going to being solved from themselves. So this bluntness, this clarity is really helpful, and this will give the direction at national level that will trigger the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. That's an interesting point. And maybe, Seán, you would like to react on this. Do you think the recast of the EPBD can give much better clarity on the direction and for example, on the importance of electrification for heating via heat pumps? Or are we sometimes a bit hiding behind this technology neutrality principle, as Oliver said?
Yeah, it's easy to hide behind things, be it technological neutrality or whatever. But obviously, heat pumps are the way forward, particularly in new buildings. And also some older buildings can be retrofitted, but then there will be other buildings that it will not be practical or too costly to have them. So it's a question of identifying and recommending the type of building that a heat pump is available for. But definitely the whole question of renovation has to be addressed in the context of the raw materials that are available and pointing out the different options that people have. And obviously, you're not going to say that you're not going to mention anything in case you leave something out. You have to indicate what is available and what is probably the best option in a different circumstances. And consumers need that type of information, because once a consumer or a homeowner goes about retrofitting their houses, they want access to information and they want good information. And often, if you're getting it only from a supplier of one particular product, just like buying a car from Toyota or Audi, they're going to say theirs is the best. But if it has a kind of an objective factor to it, then they can look at it and find more information on it. So definitely, the whole question of information is going to be key here, because you're talking about motivating particularly private homeowners to do things they have very little knowledge about, other than a desire to make their houses less in terms of creating emissions, less inefficient, and making them more efficient and more comfortable.
Thank you, Seán. Oliver, maybe you want to react on the point how to make sure houses are ready for heat pump, or which houses are ready for heat pump. So for sure, consumers will need this information. We need to provide this information, but maybe also to communicate clearly to the market. So what is needed to make a house ready for a heat pump?
Yeah. Thank you for allowing me to clarify. I think Professor Baggini mentioned earlier that we're not yet there for the full electrification of heating. I also heard what Seán Kelly said. I want, however, to bring a nuance to that. It's not because in certain cases a fully operational heating system working only on electricity is not yet possible, that we cannot already make the deliberate choice for the heat pump technology. The heat pump technology really allows for high efficiencies, and these high efficiencies can also be achieved in buildings that are maybe not so energy efficient. We have, for instance, hybrid heat pumps, which have a gas or sometimes also even biomass boiler that would only provide the needed heat that could not be provided just through electric means. So there are technologies that are heat pump technologies that can be used as of today in order to first get immediate results. And second, and here I'm really making the link with what we're saying in the beginning concerning workers, it's to give a clear sign that a heat pump is what we're heading towards. Okay, there might be little hurdles on the way, but it is really important also for consumers to show that this is the way. Our industry is committed to that. As I said earlier, we're not willing to do this alone. We're willing to do it together with a skills in the framework of a skills summit. But once again, being really clear and really blunt about the fact that this is the direction, this is key, I think.
Thank you, Oliver. I'd like to go back to Angelo. because as an academic, you may have more to say on the challenge of training. So we have highlighted, and Seán highlighted the need to attract more people, to train more people, to upscale the training program, etc. What's your thinking on this, and what do you see possible action from the EU?
Yes, thank you. Good question. Let's say I would say we have young professionals, professional for the futures, and indeed we have to pay attention to their skills. We have to be sure that their skill will address directly the future and not the past. But we also have the old professionals, the old installers, that is the ones already working. And if I can be a bit critic, I would say that we should have to avoid a typical answer. I heard a lot of time. I did this in this way for 30 years, then why I should have to change now? We have to change now. We cannot continue to with the practices we used in the past.
Thank you, Angelo. Julie, you wanted to react on this?
Yes, sorry, I'm raising my hand the old-fashioned way. Yeah, no, I fully support what Angelo just said, and it's true that, you know, representing installers, we are often confronted with this idea that, yeah, you don't want to change the ways that you work. That's definitely partially true, but I think that it also brings to another topic, which is the fact that we are lacking an enormous amount of people to go into the new markets, etc. And so it means that at the moment, all the books are completely full. So people have no incentive in changing the way they work because they have work, because there's so much to do and so little people. So that's, you know, that's also part of the explanation and part of this issue.
And that's where clear signals about what's the future will be critical. And that's something that probably the EPBD can also propose. I wanted to also ask everyone, and maybe particularly Julie and Oliver, on the EPBD recast as such. There are some things about training indeed. So for example, Article 15 says that member states shall put in place measures and financing to promote education and training to ensure that there is a sufficient workforce with the appropriate level of skills corresponding to the needs in the building sector. So that's requirement to member states. But do you have any particular recommendations you would like to highlight to strengthen this? Julie or Oliver?
You want to go, Julie? Go ahead.
Up to you. Okay, I'll start then. Yes, so there's that. There's something that we find even more interesting in the Commission's proposal, and that's definitely, you know, paving the way for something maybe more ambitious. So definitely happy to discuss that with you, Mr. Seán. But yeah, what we've seen is that you know, there's a very detailed explanation of what member states should do with their so-called national building renovation plans. So they have to explain what are their different targets to make buildings more energy performant, in a nutshell. And we see that the Commission is proposing, for example, to look at skills mismatches and the projection of workers in the future. So I think that, you know, the Commission is really trying to go as far as they can to put pressure on member states, because again, that's really what it is about in our perspective. But yeah, I think that it could go even a bit further, because what they are asking, and you know, I'm not going into details today, but what they are suggesting, I mean, from the Commission's point of view, is something very static. I think that they are still missing the fact that we need to anticipate how this gap between available and needed workforce is going to get worse because we will have higher ambitions for buildings in the future, so we will need even more people.
Thank you, Julie. Oliver, do you want to complement something?
Yes, I'll remain faithful to my 2 points I made earlier. First, the ensuring consistency is really important. There are provisions in the Renewable Energy Directive, but also now in the Commission's proposal for the F-gas regulation, so a regulation of fluorinated gases. They all contain suggestions regarding training of installers. So it's really important that all this is looked at in a horizontal way. And obviously, the way files are sometimes I selected based on Commission proposal within the Parliament can make this difficult. So really, if you could ensure, Mr. Kelly, that there is a consistency provided across all the files, that would be my first message. And second message is visibility, of course. It might seem like a detail, but there used to be clear definitions on heat pumps in the EPBD. Now, my colleagues that have been following that file, but I think that they've been moved to the annex somewhere. And there are other provisions regarding, for instance, district heating that are well appearing in the text. So I think even if it's symbolic, part of showing this direction is, giving visibility to certain words one wants to promote, and not be ashamed of repeating those words throughout the legislative text, because this will create a dynamic that then will translate in member states looking at these words, using these words, putting them into plans, and then concretely speaking, this will be one way among many to trigger action.
Thank you, Oliver. Would like to look at questions from the audience. So first we have a rather technical question, so we'll see whether anyone can answer to it. So question from Fergus Merriman, who is NZEP house designer in Ireland, so country of Seán, who says that the definition of renewable energy in the EPBD omits recycled energy, and therefore the exhaust air heat pump ventilation systems are downgraded. So is there anyone that would like to provide an answer to this, or is it too complex question? Oliver? Yeah.
I have been a little bit playing with that file. There is, that's why I mentioned the importance of consistency among the files. So there is currently a certain definition in the Renewable Energy Directives that lists different kinds of sources that can be considered as renewable. And there's also a certain logic, which is that what comes directly from nature, somehow, I'm putting quotation marks, is considered renewable. And exhaust air is not considered as coming from this natural source, and therefore it is not considered as renewable. However, what we've been calling for as EHPA, and this is something to be done in the framework of the Renewable Energy Directive and also implementing measures there, is basically to make sure that the energy that is being reused through, for instance, an exhaust air heat pumps has the same status, I'm getting a bit technical, but has the same status as renewable energy, so that member states can account for these efforts in the same way as they would for renewable energy. So yeah, that's probably in the Renewable Energy Directive where there are possibilities to get this clarified and corrected.
Thank you, Oliver. I hope it answers the question. We have a next question where I will be happy to have feedback of everyone. We have discussed the importance of electrical installations, and Seán also mentioned the importance of technical building systems within minimum energy performance standards. But today, the electrical installations are not identified as a technical building system by the EPBD. So is it something that should be done? Maybe first, Angelo, I don't know how much you are familiar with the EPBD, but putting electrical installations as a technical building system and trying to optimize the energy efficiency, would it make sense in your point of view?
For sure, this makes sense. For sure, technical building system is an electrical installation. Not all the electrical installation are necessarily technical building system. If to see the electrical installation on the spot of the EPBD, we have to use this trick, but this is a trick in my opinion, to consider all of them an electrical installation. Okay, welcome. But I hope that we are able to have the power electrical installation into the building in the new EPBD as they are, in addition to the technical building system. By the way, if the world and the buildings, the future of the world and the building is electrical, the answer is trivial. We have to consider.
Yeah, you have also showed an existing standard for the efficient design of electrical installations. So can you confirm and maybe elaborate that there is potential to optimize the efficiency of the electrical installation?
Sure, we have a lot of options to optimize the efficiency. I prefer the energy performance. By the way, the efficiency of electrical installation, I would class them into two main baskets. One is the traditional approach, more performance of classical equipment. For example, optimized sizing of an electrical line, or the optimal choice of the power transformer. These are a classical approach, and we have to pay attention to them. The second basket is in the control, in the usage, or on the automation of the loads and the installation. This is again done by a way of an electrical installation, but this is an electrical installation in the basket of TBD and TBS. These two combined approach would really change, in my opinion.
Yep. Thank you, Angelo. Julie, do you want to complement something on this question?
Well, I think, we've had a very good demonstration that the electrification of usages is coming. And so it means that we definitely need to cater for really safe and sound electrical installations. I will take again an example from Germany, but well, it's a big country, so that's I think that's quite a good example. But in Germany, around 70% of buildings have outdated switch boxes and wiring. So there's a lot of risk, potential risk ahead of us if we don't update those electrical installations. And obviously, when you want to add solar panels, heat pumps to an old electrical system, it will create issues. So that's why we need to again anticipate. And I think that it goes both ways, because we need to anticipate, but also if we make sure that electrical installations are fit for the challenges, if we have more inspections of installations, then it's also a great way to engage with end users and say, well, I've had a look at our electrical installation, we can do this, we can do that, and then we trigger renovations and we trigger energy performance in buildings.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. Seán, do you want to react on this? Do you agree that electrical installations should be considered as technical building systems in the EPBD?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are some very important points made there, and there are things that we need to take on board. And that brings me to a point I want to mention, is that it's important for stakeholders to be aware of the timeline. We are discussing the report now in June, and by July the 5th will be the deadline for tabling amendments. So particularly between now and July, if people feel there are any deficiencies in the proposals, they should send us on amendments. Also, opportunities to meet MEPs who are key to these areas are very important. And the question of consistency was also mentioned. That's something we're trying to do, particularly at our group level, where we have regular meetings with the various rapporteurs on the Fit for 55 files, so that there would be consistency across those files and one wouldn't contradict the other. So yes, I think we're open to any suggestions at this stage that will strengthen the directive and help us to achieve the aims of really ramping up the renovation of buildings immediately. And we have to ensure that we have all the areas covered, and not just in relation to skilled workforce. The whole question of finance is going to be very important and supports that. And indeed, as well as that, putting pressure on the member states to ensure they put in place the various supports, one-stop shops, etc., necessary, so that people can be helped and motivated to carry out the renovations and to use the various tools that are available, be it heat pumps or whatever, and that information would be readily available and applicable. So I want to thank you again, the Copper Lines, for having me here. I have another meeting which has started actually right now, so I'll have to leave you. And thanks again and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Seán. It was a very good concluding word from Seán Kelly, and a call to everyone to give input to this process. Now I would like to continue the tour de table by asking each participant to give a final conclusion, final concluding word, very short statement. Maybe starting with Angelo.
Yes, thank you. Very interesting. Thank you for the invitation. I hope that this opportunity to exchange ideas, I took also some notes, will really improve our Europe. And let's say this, in my opinion, is really an opportunity to transform a weak in an advantage for the whole Europe. We are poor of energy. The humans are hungry of energy. With this process, we can really provide something valuable.
Thank you, Angelo. So transforming a weakness into a strength. Julie, yes, your final word, please.
Happy to go in the same direction. I would say that to conclude that we need a massive realization from member states. That technical education, because that's what I'm talking about. You know, that's not just engineers. We're talking about installers, people who have a vocational education and training background. So that technical education must be better promoted. And the good side, the bright side on that is that there are lots of purposeful and numerous careers to create. That's the good point. And we also need member states to realize that electrification of usages is coming, and calls for an update of electrical installations. And in all of that, the EU can help, as Mr. Kelly framed it, by putting pressure, or let's say by influencing member states to act in this regard.
So pushing member states to act and promote technical education also by providing clear signals in the regulatory framework. Oliver, your final words.
I don't think we have a weakness. I think we have a hidden strength in Europe. If I talk about the heat pump technology, is around since the 19th century. So the technology is there. Now, the only thing that we need is, again, as I said, is to be blunt and frank about the fact that this is the choice that we want to, that this is what we're choosing for our future. And then let's sit together and discuss things in this format or in the format of a EU Skills Summit, and discuss certain issues precisely like the question that just arrived there in the chat. So yeah, how to deal with the fact that we want to have a stage renovation, but then we have products that have a specific size. Yeah, I don't have an answer right now, but if we are sure about the future, about that this is the direction that we want to go, we will find solution. We will set up policy and financial initiatives, incentives that will make it possible. So just have faith, get to work, and we will manage it.
Great, so set clear direction, and I think today we have discussed two elements also that Seán Kelly supported, that yeah, we need to put the direction of electrification with heat pumps. The importance of electrical installation as a technical building system was also supported by Seán Kelly. So that's very positive for this. So thank you everyone for your participation and the great discussion we had today. Wanted still to inform you about our next debate that we will have in the same format. So we will debate the role of buildings into the energy system with MEP Karen Cuff, so the rapporteur on the EPBD. That will be on May 31st, and we will have for this debate the participation of PPIE, ECOS, and Solar Power Europe. You will find the information for this on our website and also in the follow-up email that you will receive. And then the final debate will be around the perspective of consumers. It's something that was mentioned also by Seán Kelly, that we need to accompany consumers. And we will have a debate in June also involving the consumer organizations on this. So all info on our website, copperalliance.org/events/EPBD. I would like to thank you again, everyone, all panelists, all participants, for your contribution today. I hope there will be more action. As Seán mentioned, you can give input to the EPBD process, and this call for EU Skills Initiative or Skills Summit is something that resonates well. So now it's time to have action, and let's do it. And so keep in touch and come back to our next debate. Thank you, everyone.